So if you're thinking about using the Corsair 4000D airflow case for your next build, stick around. In this video, I just want to give you a quick teardown of this case. Along the way, we'll talk about some of the specifications, the components you can add and where you can add them, and just give you a general tour of the case. But I do also have a 4000X RGB case in white. The airflow one is in black, but I do have a white one here. Later on in the video, I'm going to spend just a brief amount of time. I'm going to swap some of the parts over between the black and the white cases, kind of see how that looks. And so anyways, let's go ahead and get these unboxed. We'll just quickly go around it and tear it apart, see what you get with it. So this is the white 4000X RGB case, and this is the 4000D airflow case. It is essentially just the same case. Everything is really identical in it. The white one, the RGB version of it, does come with 3 RGB fans, so it's a touch more expensive to do that one. Now, the first thing you'll notice is that the glass is protected by a plastic film on the inside as well as the outside. I always save that for the very last step when everything's built, it's ready to go, I'm ready to play a game. I'll take that off so it looks great. But to go ahead and get this glass panel off, there's 2 thumb screws in the back. And these are captive thumb screws. You just want to undo those. And then to get the side off, now I will say that they're not hinged at the front, so you do want to keep a good firm grip of this or it will kind of fall. But you just want to grab it up here, both hands if possible. You just want to give it a very firm tug and that will just let loose on there. Then you can go ahead and remove that. Now it's just got a couple of clips on the front edge here that just kind of lock into the front side. Again, there's no hinge on here. That would be nice, but you know, some of the more expensive cases will have hinges. But anyways, there's the plastic on the inside. Go ahead and remove that and just set that aside. So it supports down to ITX, micro ATX, eATX, and ATX. Now the standoffs in here are pre-positioned into the ATX position, which I believe is what the majority of you are going to be using. So if you need to change those, you can do so now. But I always just look in here and just make sure that they're in the ATX position or whatever board I'm going to be putting in there, usually ATX. Now the center one does have a little stud protruding out of it. That's meant so that when you put your board in, that's kind of a place you can kind of latch it and hang it on there so that you can kind of get it positioned. The maximum CPU heatsink height is going to be 170 millimeters, so take that into account if you're doing air cooling. Now moving around the back, this case has 220 millimeter airflow fans pre-installed. One of them is in the rear here. It's got a little bit of adjustment to it up or down should you need that. Now you cannot put a 140 millimeter fan in here. It doesn't support that, but it will support 120 millimeter AIO if you choose to do that. That will fit back here as well. Now as far as the PCI expansion slots, you got 7 slots for that. It also does have 2 slots for a vertical GPU mount should you choose to go that route. Just make sure your GPU is 2 slots. So some of the larger cards are probably not going to fit in a vertical fashion without using some other type of bracket here. This case supports a maximum GPU length of 360 millimeters, so check yours out. Power supply mount, there is no external mounting bracket. A lot of them have a removable plate here. This one doesn't. You just slide it in and mount it right up. You're ready to go. So the maximum power supply length will be 220 millimeters. Just check the specs on your power supply and make sure it'll fit. It does have a removable power supply air filter down here on the bottom. It's got a nice little handle on it. It's easy to pull out, put in. You can clean that periodically, put it back in. For the back panel, it's just the same 2 types of removable thumb screws. Again, grab the case, give it a good firm tug, pull it off. Make sure you maintain a good grip on it because again, it's got the same, just the front mounting points that will come off. It's not hinged, so it can just slide off and kind of bang down on your desk. Not a big deal, but just keep a good grip on it and you're good to go. Now we'll point out that these panels are interchangeable from front to back. So should you decide to get rid of the glass front for some reason and you want to cover this up, the back panel fits just fine on the front. Screw it back in, and vice versa on the rear. If you wanted to show off your fantastic cabling job, you could put the glass panel back on the back here. And there you go, you've reversed that. So now you've got kind of more of a traditional case with the covered side, should you want to do that. So moving around the back, let's talk about the storage options that you get here. Now there's 2 drive sleds for the 2.5-inch SSDs. And these are removable just by a captive thumb screw. Nice touch. Take those off. Now these will mount in the front also, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So you can remove those, mount your drives, put them back on, easy enough. It also does have two 3.5-inch hard disk drive mounting sleds. These sleds just come out, it's toolless. You do get a box of additional accessories, which I'll show you in just a second. The drive sleds, these are just plastic, but they're toolless. You don't need any screws to mount your drives. It's got a little plastic post there. You kind of stretch this around your drive, put it on, and it'll hold it just fine. You can just put it back in. The drive cage is removable. There is a foam mounting piece here. You can just remove that. It's not needed after you get it. It's just for shipping. Now to remove the drive cage, there's just two thumb screws down in the bottom here. They're easy to get to, they're captive. And once you undo those, the drive cage just slides forward and then you can remove it out of the bottom of the case. So it's nice to have this cage out of there because you just get all this extra room for cable management back here. And if you're doing, a lot of RGB, these are great areas for, Commander Core XTs, things like that. So I like to remove it. However, there are two mounting positions for this drive cage. You can leave it in the forward position, which I think is how it came. But once you undo that, you can undo the screws, pull it out, and you can move it back a little bit, maybe 1.5 inches or so, more towards the rear. So if you still want to use this, but you would like to gain a little bit of additional room here for cable management, take it out and push it more towards the rear. If you decide to use a 360mm radiator in the front, be aware that the drive cage, if it's in the forward position, will interfere with that installation. So in that case, you'll have to use the rearward-most position or remove it altogether. Talking about the accessory box is going to have all your included screws, and it does have some additional zip ties and washers and things like that, just some additional accessories. So hold on to that, you will need that. It does come with 3 additional Velcro straps for cable management. All right, so speaking of cable management, we do get a fancy cable management channel here, which a lot of other cases in this range, the mid-tower cases, just do not have. So this is a nice addition. It's not the most perfect thing in the world, but it really can help to tidy up your case. So how this works basically is there's just some Velcro mounting straps here, and they kind of run underneath the channel, and then the channel just allows you to run the strap and double back on itself and tighten it up. But we can just undo all of those, and then we can undo the cables. Now these are the cables that come with the case. Now the cable management channel can be removed should you need to. I don't know exactly why you'd remove it, but if you've got some hardware back here that you need that room and you prefer to not use it, it's several different screws and you can get it out of here. Let's go ahead and take it off. So this top piece is a separate piece to the channel, but one screw holds that on, and then you have 3 screws that hold this bottom channel on. And once you undo those, the channel comes out. And you can see on the back here how the Velcro strap just runs underneath there. Easy enough. But that does give you a little bit of additional room should you need to. You just, of course, would have to find your own way to manage cables at that point. So let's talk about an accessory that you can get from Corsair. Right here on the back panel, this is just open right here from Corsair. There's nothing here. That's just where your motherboard is going to sit. But you can purchase an accessory tray for this location. Why it's not included, I don't know. And it basically just gives you some additional mounting locations for SSDs. This would be a great tray to have if you've got some RGB controllers like the Core XT or the Commander Pro or the Commander Core. But it basically is just going to fit into a couple of slots over here. Right there, and then just mount up here, and then it comes with a thumb screw in the package. But you can then attach that accessory plate to this. There really is nothing overly unique about this accessory tray in that it's nothing super high quality. So I don't understand why Corsair didn't just include this. So we'll come back here in just a minute and talk about how to get this cable bar, is what they call it, this internal plate. You can move it forwards and backwards. Now the front here, this is where the mesh panel is. This mesh panel is easily removed. It's got 4 lugs that hold it in. So if you just grab it, it just kind of unclips from the front there and it comes out. It's a nice metal piece. Next is going to be a filter, a dust filter here. It's got a little clip up here at the top. You just kind of lift it down and pull it right off. It's magnetically attached, easy to clean and put back on. And then from here you get all your fan mounting options. Here's where they've mounted this other included airflow fan. Probably just one fan by itself is not going to be enough. You're probably going to want to supplement this with at least a couple of other fans. It depends on what you're doing as far as a build goes. Would have preferred had they, gave you 3 fans up front here to get started, but it is what it is. This is a good starting point. Now the included fans, they're just really basic fans. These are just 3-pin DC controlled fans. Like if you're going to put these like on a Commander Core XT or something like that, you're not really going to get any speed control. Now we do have this little piece in here, this power supply shroud, and it's basically just a little plastic piece in here that just unclips. Very simple, just hooks into the back with 2 clips, one on the front. Now you don't necessarily need to remove this, but you will need to remove it if you're going to do an AIO in the front. In the front of this case, it will accept up to 320mm fans or up to 2 140mm fans, a 360mm radiator, or a 280mm radiator in the front. And so if you're going to do the radiator, this piece must come out. There's not enough room without it, and that's really why it's there to be removed. But you can take your 360mm radiator or AIO, and you've got just enough room to get it in there. And that gives you just kind of an idea of what that'll look like in there. Now, of course, you can do just fans up front as well. This should just give you kind of a basic idea and concept of what that will look like. If you decide to use a 360mm radiator in the front, be aware that the drive cage, if it's in the forward position, will interfere with that installation. So in that case, you'll have to use the rearward-most position or remove it altogether. On the inside and on the top here, you get the option of 2 120mm fans, or it's got mounting rails for 240mm fans as well. It will also support a 280mm radiator or a 240mm radiator. Corsair is specifying that with a 280mm radiator, you do need Corsair LPX DRAM, which is a low profile RAM for it to fit. Let me know in the comments below if you've had any experience with that. For a 240mm radiator, any DRAM should work fine. Of course, and then as we talked about earlier, the back is just a single fan, 120mm only, or 120mm AIO. The entire case is kind of perforated, so it should allow you plenty of airflow. You should get some really decent cooling on here. So let's talk about this front bezel. You can remove it. There's not a lot of functional reason to do so. I would do it more for maintenance or cleaning, or if I were going to replace it or do some mods or things like that. So it's cool that it comes off. It's just a couple of screws on the bottom. Let's go ahead and take those off. So once those screws are off, you can just kind of pop down the bezel. It just slides down, almost kind of falls off. Then you can just remove it. So removing the front bezel also gives you access to a couple of screws which hold a little plastic piece up here, which is housing the front panel I/O board. There's also a couple of screws up underneath here and a couple on the side. It looks like to get that board fully out of there. We're not going to remove that board in this particular case. The other piece we want to talk about is this cable bar. Now it's this metal piece in here, and you do need to move it if you're going to use like an eATX motherboard. Now there's a single screw that holds this in place, and it's just right at the top here. So let's get this out. Once that screw is out, we can then work around the front, and it just basically lifts up and out. Now there's a couple of different positions for it. The back one is the default position. If you're going to do an eATX board, you're going to want to move it to the front position. Basically, you just want to set it up in there. Make sure you're in that front hole. Just kind of press it flat. Make sure all 3 lugs are attached. And then it just kind of sits back down. And then you can just screw it back in. But as you can see here, now that exposes area right here. So if you're going to do an eATX board, that board's going to fit. And then on the front panel, of course, you get the power on off, USB 3, you get a USB-C port, a headphone, microphone jack, and a reset button. Also on the top, you have a very large dust filter. This has a Corsair branded pull tab, which looks really nice. And if you look really close at the holes that are printed in this, they are the Corsair triangle, so it looks really cool. It is magnetically attached. I recommend you leave this on, even if it's going to be an exhaust vent. So overall, this is a pretty easy to work with case. There's nothing super unique about it, but it's just got a couple of those additional options, quality of life things that just make it a really good build. I think overall, it's got lots of cooling options for any of the basic mid-level builds you're going to do. And so overall, just a really good case, easy to work with, fairly simple. but I think it's just got the options right in the right areas that you need them. So now if you wanted to change this from like an airflow case into more of like the RGB style case, or they make a solid panel for this, you can get on Corsair.com and buy some of the additional faceplates for these. And I'll show you kind of what those look like. I'll link to all of these products in the description below. But this is the solid panel. If you want to go this look here, this just fits on exactly the same way. So you can get yourself a solid look in the front. That looks pretty sharp. Again, you're going to change your cooling characteristics and kind of defeat the purpose of an airflow case. So we can take off the solid front, and I did purchase a glass front for it as well. Just basic, same exact concept. What we've really done is just converted this to a 4000X in black without the RGB fans. Check those out if you're interested in kind of changing up how your case looks, but I think the glass panel is kind of a cool thing to have. I want to look at this, what it looks like putting some of the white components on here from the 4000X. So I just went through here and had a lot of fun just swapping a bunch of different pieces between these two cases because they're all interchangeable. It's the same case. And to be honest with you, I didn't really like the look of any of it. A lot of it just kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. It just wasn't really classy. So with that said, the one piece that does look really good when you swap it is that cable bar. And when I swapped that between the two, the black on the white and the white on the black, it just looked really good. To the point where that would maybe be something that if you like the look of that, check out the photos. But if you like that, you could probably contact Corsair and for probably not very much money, buy that particular piece and put it in there. I thought it just looked really cool. So it's hard to say exactly what makes the 4000D airflow case so popular right now, but in my opinion, number one, it's Corsair. Corsair has a really good brand reputation, and that usually means the quality is a notch above its competition. I will say this case is no exception to that. This comes with a couple of really good quality of life improvements over some of the budgety type cases. The build quality is just better, which just makes it fun to build in. It's got good cable management abilities to it. Most of the cases don't have any cable management hardly at all. They have a couple of lugs that you can put some zip ties to. Number two, it's available. You can run down to Best Buy right now and grab this case. And the price, albeit, is a little bit more than some of the budget-minded cases that you can find out there. But the price for the quality, I think, is just kind of in that sweet spot where it's just a really good first case to have, and you can be proud of it. It's got the brand name Corsair on it, and it just looks good. And it does have some interchangeable parts and some functionality and other things you can do with it. So overall, I've had a really good experience building in this PC. It's posed no major problems with the hardware that I've installed in it. It's got plenty of storage options should you need it. The cable management is more than acceptable. It's way better than a lot of cases in this range, in that you got the cable management bar, so that's a nice touch. I did 6 RGB fans here and routed it to that controller. Yeah, and you can certainly spend more time and get it looking better than I did, but it really didn't pose a lot of problems for me. It was easy to do. It was fun to work with. It's got plenty of cooling options, with radiators and fans. It's not really geared for crazy, custom water cooling and things like that. The cooling results I've got are just basic. This is not super powerful hardware that's in here, and it's not overclocked. You also do have the ability to do some customizations if you want to change out the faceplate. If you want to purchase some of the white components in there, you've just got some ability to have some fun with this case. So would I recommend it? I would recommend this for anybody that's looking for an airflow case that's just got that kind of classic, classy look. If you're looking for that Corsair level of quality, this is a great case to go with. There's always going to be a better case out there. Now, there are definitely many worse options than this. This is probably not a great option if you want to do a lot of custom water cooling and things like that and some crazy big builds. But if you're just looking for a good mid-level gaming machine, you're not going to go all out and go crazy, this is definitely it. I really like it. So if you have any questions about this case, let me know in the comments below. What do you think about this case? Have you used it? What was your experience with it? As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about this case, let me know. I'm happy to help out to the best of my ability when I can get to them. And that is going to do it for today. Thanks for watching.